I'm Danielle Metz,
And I'm Robert Vaughn.
and this is the Danielle Metz Show. Quote, if you hold the belief that we exist in a white male patriarchy, then in order to be a feminist, you must also necessarily hold the belief that women have never accomplished anything. Because if they did, it would mean there was no patriarchy. In other words, the person with the lowest possible opinion of a woman is a feminist. Observed John Ward in a video titled Jordan Peterson Ends Feminist Politician's Career, released on December 18th, 2018. Which is absolutely true, because feminism only works as a political movement if women fail. Because if women are actually successful on their own merits, then what's the point of the current third wave feminist movement? And given that it was International Women's Day that just passed on March 8th, I only have one question for you, Robert. Did you rush out to see Captain Marvel?
No, and I have no intention of watching that. I think I've pretty much given up on the whole comic book movie remake type of genre. And it just has gone downhill. It's now just a machine. But just to get to your point of International Women's Day and feminism, you're right that it's a victim
Exactly.
industry. It's a victim industry, much like the blacks in the United States. It's been generations since the end of slavery. It's been generations even since the end of discrimination, official discrimination in the United States. And yet still there are people trying to pump that victim machine for more privilege.
Well,
And
it's not
here in Canada,
surprising.
we have the same thing with Aboriginals.
Well, that's true. And it's not surprising that the people who first initially proposed a National Women's Day were Socialist Party of America, and that was picked up by the Soviet Union's Lenin and made a national holiday.
Yes, as a
And
matter of fact, there's a national holiday in a lot of Soviet or Soviet-styled countries, even Afghanistan, believe it or not. But because they were, of course, taken over by the Soviets at one point in time, I'd like to see an International Women's Day in the Saudi Arabia. Let's see that.
well, the thing I was surprised most about when I was researching this is there's actually an International Men's Day. And it was initially proposed back in the early 90s, and it was adopted and, more, what's the word I'm looking for, institutionalized by Trinidad and Tobago, which is where my mom's from, back in 1999. And I quote, the reason why they have International Men's Day is because they want to celebrate men's role in society and the family. And I'm like, what a uplifting national day to have. And it's followed by, it's November 19th, and on November 20th is Universal Child's Day, thereby tying the family together. And I thought, that is actually a heartwarming thing. And the scary part is, I'd never heard of it until I went and looked up International Women's Day and found out, oh, well, there's one for men too. Do we celebrate it? Not really. No, it's just it's a footnote in a Wikipedia
You know
article.
why? It's because it sounds to me, and I've never heard of it before, but it sounds to me to be something that's positive.
Exactly.
Celebrating a positive thing, while International Women's Day, of course, is a negative. We're victims, poor, pitiful us. We don't have the right to vote. Oh, no, sorry, we did in 1920, 1917 in Canada. So they don't have much to gripe about. They don't. And if you go onto the United Nations website to see what the themed International Women's Days were, it's pretty much against violence, end violence against women. Yeah, right, like that's going to happen. It's like ending terrorism. It's been around forever.
It's like ending violence.
Yes.
That's
And
not
why
happening.
just against women? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not violence against men? Because there's more violence against men than there is
Yes,
women. What do you
exactly.
think
Women-
dies in the wars?
Women are the most privileged class in society, and they act like they're the victim. And I hate the fact that they make me, by extension of being part of that group, not through any choice of my own, look like a pussy.
Could have chosen a better word there, but yeah. I've had this discussion before with a local feminist on television, where I was opposed to things like pay equity. And we got on the local cable news or the cable television show and debated it, where I was saying that these kinds of legislation which take women and make them as children, it makes them weak,
Exactly.
it makes them vulnerable, and it perpetuates that myth that they are weak and vulnerable, does nothing to advance the feminist cause. What
It
you got
removes
to
our
do
agency.
is get over it and let society get on without this victimhood. because when it comes down to it, and I think the research has already been done, that any disparity in pay with women has nothing to do with discrimination as such. It's about people making choices. And there's
and
a
they
lot of
don't
other
want us to
research.
make. They want us not to make the choice. They don't want women to be free to make the choices that women naturally will make. Yes, most women do like going into social aspect or social kind of careers like nursing and stuff like that, where men tend to go towards sciences and engineering and that kind of stuff. That's called free choice.
Yes.
It's not systemic. It's not systemic sexism at all. And what they actually want to do is imbue a systemic sexism where you have to have this amount of women to this amount of men. And it's like you're yoking women by removing the free choice, which is supposed to be the antithesis of what you're doing by the movement of the suffragettes and the International Women's Day and feminism. So I am so sick and tired as a woman with free choice to do whatever I want, to be told what I'm supposed to want to do. Well, I'm in politics, so I got that going for me.
It's not unusual that this, of course, was started and promoted by socialists and communists. Mm-hmm. Because it all has to do with collectivism. You're part of a group. You're not an individual, Danielle. You're part of a group, and you were being used as a woman to advance not feminism, not womanhood, nothing like that. It's to advance the goals of the people who started the movement, which is socialism and communism. That's
Exactly.
it. Collectivists.
Because we can't exist as individuals, because if we're all individuals, then there's no herd. No, there's no specific herd to corral as a person in power. You have to have those herds. So okay, well, you're going to appeal to the black vote. You're going to appeal to the women's vote. You're going to appeal. You have to have those collective terms. Otherwise, you have to argue on principle rather than envy. And I think that's the biggest problem with the whole thing. And I'm just so sick of hearing about this and the whole Captain Marvel thing and the protection that movie got. Did you hear about the Rotten Tomatoes thing that happened?
I think, didn't they rig it so that people couldn't give their opinion of the movie in advance of the movie coming out? Wasn't that the thing?
From what I understand, based on certain sources, and I checked a bunch of sources, so this is not just coming from one channel. What happened was, initially, Rotten Tomatoes had this feature where you could say your intent to see the movie. So you register, I want to see this movie, I don't want to see this movie. As Brie Larson, who, as you know, plays Captain Marvel, came out and talked about the fact that this is the first feminist Marvel movie and is breaking the glass ceiling, which has been broken by countless told women in the past in superhero movies and action adventure movies. She just kept coming out and saying it's not for white men shouldn't come see it. And as that went on, the wanting to see it metric went down and went down and went down. And then what did Rotten Tomatoes do? They removed it. So nobody was allowed to do that. Then, the day of release, and I checked it out, there was about 50 some odd thousand people, and the audience rating was about 34%. Then suddenly the next day, 30,000 of those votes were gone. And suddenly, the uptick. And it kept going up, and the amount of people who had rated it kept going down. So Rotten Tomatoes, which is supposed to be a completely hands-off site, was seemingly interfering with protecting this feminist movie. And the fact that they need protection basically says it all.
Yeah, it's rather sad, actually, and I go back to the reboot of Star Trek with the new Prime line and the Star Trek Discovery show. People are a little fed up, and I think are just turning off of blatant attempts at trying to gear society towards their agenda, which is, of course, egalitarianism, collectivism, socialism, communism, all the isms that end up in people dying eventually, and blood in the street and revolution. Those kinds of things, people are just turning off for them because they've seen this before in history. They've seen it before when people's voices are stifled, like a Tommy Robinson in Britain, or any of the myriad of people who have been kicked off of the various social media platforms in Canada, the United States. They're just sick and tired of it, and hopefully they're going to walk away from all of this nonsense.
Well, it's also not only that they're sick and tired of that, they're sick and tired of being told what to think. You didn't go see Captain Marvel? Oh, you're a sexist. It was like when we were talking about comedy in the past. It's like comedy, what is now the new metric for where you are in your social strata. And they're doing the same thing with entertainment all across the board. What you want to go see is how you are perceived. So you go see Captain Marvel, oh, you're a good feminist. Good job. Good. Glad to see you came out. If you don't want to see it because it doesn't interest you, or you don't want to have politics shoved down your throat in what's supposed to be an entertainment venue, then you're an evil person. And I think people are getting tired of being told what to think and what to like.
It's also an infusion of politics into absolutely everything these days.
Everything is political.
I saw something on the internet, and you know how it is on the internet. You see something, and then 5 minutes later, you have no idea where it came from. But this stuck with me. Somebody was saying how to be a good teacher or professor, saying that if you can finish your course without any of your students guessing your religion or your political bent, then you've done a good job.
Excellent.
Today, as soon as you walk into a classroom, apparently, you understand the politics and religion of your professor and teacher.
Yep. That's part of the course.
Yes, it's usually part of the course, but that's what's gotten. And another interview I saw with Johnny Carson saying, don't get political. You don't want to get political. And same with Jay Leno. I think Jay Leno kept politics mostly out of there. But now if you go on to late night in the entertainment industry, it's all politics, and it's all leftist politics, and it's getting really disgusting and tiresome.
And that's the part that's like entertainment and sports even. It's infecting sports. Like the Colin Kaepernick thing, and even ESPN. I don't watch it because I'm not a sports gal, but I've heard that the commentators on a sports show are getting involved in politics. That's not what we want as a culture. We want entertainment to bring us together, to put those disagreements aside, to give us common cause. And what they're doing is they're destroying that. They're completely decimating the culture.
That's exactly the word I would use, destroy. It is a destruction. It's a destruction of everything that we were hoping that we could build upon. You know, when I was a child, I remember distinctly thinking that, wow, look at the progress we've made before I was born. Look at the progress we're making now in the 60s and the 70s. But then all of a sudden you get a whole group of people in all walks of life now, in everything from education to government to industry, wanting to deliberately destroy it. But they want to destroy it because of its success. Ayn Rand said it was the destruction of the good for being the good, or the hatred of the good for being the good. It's absolutely right. She was a prophet.
No, it's actually the destruction of the good for being good. That's the thing, is they're destroying not only the Marvel movies, they're destroying Star Trek, they're destroying Star Wars, and they're taking all of the things that fans from going way back, they're taking childhoods away from people. Like Star Wars, The Last Jedi was apparently so bad, I didn't watch it because I knew what it was going to be about based on the trend that seemed to be going. And I've watched a lot of people review it, and I can see exactly, they destroyed it. And they said they admitted it in the movie that we have to destroy the past in order to have the future. And that is the progressive mantra.
Sad.
Well, I'll catch you next International Women's Day. Maybe we'll catch a feminist flick there, Robert. And until then, take care. Take care, behave yourself, and we'll talk again soon. Cheers.